welcome back to the channel. You're in for a treat because today I'm answering 10 questions that Sam doesn't know about me. He sent me his list and I'll be doing it while I bake a carrot cake with a cashew cream frosting. I'm not going to be telling you the recipe step by step because I'll be answering questions, so if you are interested in trying this yourself, it's going to be down in the description box below. So before we go, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, especially if you like what you see, and let's just get right into it. So Sam's first question is, if you were born into any culture at any time and in any place, what would it be? And I find this question very hard to answer because I do really like where I was born and who I have become because of that. I also know that if I was to choose a place back in time, that the world wasn't as we know it now. So I'd be very cautious to pick a place just because I like the way they look or stories that I hear from there. And I'm not a big history buff, so I feel like I'd pick a place and then end up in worse trouble than I'd like to. I mean, if I was a pharaoh or royalty in the Egyptian era, that would be really cool to see that civilization form, but most likely I will not be part of that, so could be a lot of consequences. I think Sam is more of a history buff than me, so he would have a really good answer for this. This could be one that I ask him, but I don't feel like I have enough of an understanding of our world to really answer this properly and do it justice, so I might have to get back to you on that one, babe. So I have all my ingredients here. I've got the ingredients for my icing as well as my cake, and I'm ready to start measuring it out, but we need the next question first. So Sam's next question for me is, what is something that he's done that has embarrassed me the most? Which is such a funny question to ask, but let's do it. So Sam is really good in the way that he never makes me feel embarrassed as such, but a time that I can think of where I felt uncomfortable and embarrassed in the situation, not necessarily myself, there was a family event that we went to and I didn't know many people, and I think he hadn't seen a lot of his family in a very long time, so he ended up kind of moving about and socializing, and I think he kind of left me there on my own without realizing that I wasn't feeling 100% comfortable, and so that felt a bit embarrassing. We are moving to a bushfire area, for those that don't know, so his next question is based on that, and it is, if our house had burnt down, would you rebuild knowing that it might burn again, or would you move away and start a new life somewhere else? And I think that's a pretty important question for both of us to think about, really, because that's the reality of our life and the place we're choosing to move to. Honestly, if my house burnt down, I would most likely start a life somewhere else. I think it would be a really big loss, and I try not to get stuck into a material world where I want to possess things and I want to build that up. Like, you know, if something's gone that's an object or material thing, I don't feel a lot of loss in it. I'm sure I would feel very different with a whole house though, and a whole property. When the situation occurs, I might change my mind, but for the time being, I think I would move and take that as a leaf turning over or a fresh page in a book, just a new start, a new beginning. And I mean, there's a lot of growth that can come from new beginnings. But as I said, when it's your own house and your own property, that could look very different. So I couldn't ever say for certain until that moment comes. So Sam's next question is, I know we've talked about moving overseas to live there for a year. Would you ever consider somewhere else to be home, or that somewhere else could be home, or do you think Australia is where home is? That's a great question. I do really like that. And I mean, I've lived in both Israel and Australia, and since moving to Australia, I've been building it up to be home. And I think I really love being here. but the climate and the environment is very rough, very dry, very unpredictable, very hot. So I do consider myself being here for my adulthood and as I grow a family. But I feel like later on I would feel more comfortable to make home somewhere else as well. So I would love to have a second home in a place like Thailand, where I love the culture and I love the people and I love the environment. I would love to have a second home there one day. I would also not mind seeing other places, like especially towards Canada and Sweden and Norway. So the Northern Hemisphere, really up high in the colder climates. I think I would really enjoy those cold climates and again the cultures, but I don't know how realistic that would be considering that we are building our property from nothing here and we're going to be working hard, putting a lot of hours, money and time into our property. So I don't know how realistic it will be to one day leave that completely and move to a different place. I know our family's already finding it quite hard to come to terms with the fact that we won't be in the same state. So to move to a different country would just be a whole other level. It would definitely be much later in our lives, I would think. Okay, so question number 5 is, if your name could go down in history for doing one thing, what would it be? I don't think my name will ever go down in history, but I think if I got to choose what I'd be recognized for or remembered for, I really hope that when we start building our property up, that it turns to more than just our home. I hope that it becomes a place where others can come, a place where, and not necessarily live, but a place where people can visit and see what we're doing, and a place that can inspire others to do the same thing here in our country. I know that there's a lot of really incredible businesses and farms up in the area we're moving to who do practice the same principles and ideas and ways of building and living, and so I really hope that we can be a part of it and be remembered as a big part of that change and that movement and that inspiration for others in the world. Do a bit of vanilla and pour it in. Time for question is, if you could bring any fictional world into your own, what would it be and how would it change your life? I'm a primary school teacher, so I think it goes without saying the one world I would love to live in is one of Dr. Seuss's world, and I love Christmas time, so it would have to be Whoville. I mean, a town obsessed with Christmas, it's like a town in my dreams. To me, Whoville looks a lot like a Scandinavian country as well, which, as you heard just before, is just a dream of mine to visit or to live in. That would be the world. And the way it would change my life, I mean, 1, I'd have to wear more cold weather gear. 2, I would be broke because I would be celebrating Christmas every day. So the next question is there any weakness of yours that if you could click your fingers and change in an instant, you would? Nosy. I think the weakness that I might change about myself if I could is my indecisiveness. A lot of the time it comes from me being very practical and thinking of all the things that could go wrong or that I need to prepare or organize or change before I can make that decision. And a lot of the times I will choose not to do something, not to buy something, not to go somewhere because it isn't practical, or it doesn't fit in nicely into my life, or it doesn't fit nicely into my plans. So I think if I could be more certain in my decisions and just go and do it. Like, not think about practicalities or money or the loss of money or anything like that. Like, just go head first. If it's a mistake, it's a mistake. And that's always been a part of my life, that making mistakes is great. But for some reason in my adulthood, like, making mistakes seems to be something that I try to avoid. Question 9 is a bit of a fun one. So question 9 is, if we got handed keys and a year's worth of supplies to get on a sailboat and go around the world, sailing away, in a one-time take it or leave it kind of offer, would you take it? Would you go? And honestly, I didn't have to think about my answer too much. 100% I would go. I might think about, can I take the pets? Will the sailboat be big enough to include like one of those fake grass little toilets for the dogs, and then, you know, make stops here and there to take them out on walks? As I said before, like, I'm a very practical person and my pets are the first thing I think of. So if they can come, I'm in. But that sounds like so much fun. Even if they couldn't come, I reckon if I could get someone to look after them and make sure that they are happy and well looked after, then I have no issues and I would find that so much fun. I think I'd feel very sick of being on a boat for a long time, but there's no better person I would spend it with than Sam. Aww. All right, time to put this cake together and bake it. And we're up to our last question, which is a question that I asked Sam as well, because I think where we're heading in our life next, this is the question that needs to be asked. At what point do you think we will have succeeded in our plans, or will we always be striving for the next goal? Great question. I think the moment you give up in life and feel like you've accomplished all your goals and you're done is the moment you die. Like, I think it is really important to continue having goals, continue having ambition and plans for the future. I mean, you can always get better, you can always do more in your life. Our goals in the future, I'm sure once we succeed in our plans, I think that would be when we have a striving food forest and a system where each element looks after the other, and we feel happy and accomplished and comfortable in what we're doing. I mean, isn't that the goal for everyone, you guys? But I think there will still always be more that we want to do. I feel like I skipped a question. Yes, I did. I skipped a question about the animals. So he did have a question that said, when is too many animals enough? You keep joking about wanting more pets, but when is enough enough? Are you actually serious? Do you want more pets? Or are you just messing with me? And my answer to that, I had to think about that. I would always want pets, but I wouldn't have more pets than I can manage. I could probably go with one more dog, but only because my older dog, Kobe, he's 11 years old. And while I hope he has a very long life, I mean, it is getting closer and closer to, you know, me needing another dog, me needing 2 dogs. So the only reason I would consider another dog would be just so that my younger dog, Eris, has someone to play with and someone to comfort him when one day that day does come. Other animals like ducks, I would love to have, but yeah, I'd say I'd always want at least 2 or 3 dogs in the countryside where there's space for them to roam and enjoy each other's company. But at the moment I am satisfied with what I have. I love looking at puppy photos and imagining having another dog. Who doesn't? They're so cute. My cake is done. All my questions are done, so all that's left is to bake this. And guys, I really do hope that you've enjoyed this different kind of questions video. Sam is answering my 10 questions next, so stay tuned for that. Make sure to like and subscribe so that you get notified when that video does come out. And leave a comment if you have any questions you're curious about. In 3 months' time, when I finally move up to New South Wales, we want to show you how our property grows, how our lifestyle changes, and although it's very different for each of us right now, at the moment we are kind of at a standstill. We're just waiting for that next phase for the year to end before we really start cementing in this new lifestyle that we're building. Time to put it into the oven. So there's only the frosting left to make. All I'm going to do is soak some cashews in some hot water, add some maple syrup to it, blitz it up. I might add butter if I feel like it won't solidify by itself. Ideally, I would have added coconut oil, but I don't think I have any. I might. Yum, it tastes so good. I couldn't wait to dig in and taste it. Hope you enjoyed this video and see you guys next time.